one of the things that we discovered pretty early on is that I am pretty dyslexic. I'm probably going to have to live a very different life or take a different pathway if I wanted to be successful. When you're doing spelling tests in school for 3 and 4 letter words and you're walking away with scores of 0s and 1s and 2s, if you don't believe that you can improve and grow and change with enough effort, then you will give up. Got to a finals for my county on a team where I basically rode the bench. We lost in a really painful, devastating way just because it didn't work in this situation. You shouldn't be changing your values based on the outcomes of things.
In a world that often measures success by volume, we're pausing to listen for something quieter, the values that shape how people really live, lead, and love. This is Talk with Tia, conversations with everyday people living what matters most. Extraordinary lives, everyday values. Hi everyone, this is Talk with Tia, Extraordinary Lives, Everyday Values. Today, I'm joined by Claud Williams, founder of Dream Nation. Claud's work is rooted in a powerful reframe that traits often labeled as shortcomings, especially within the neurodiverse community, can in fact be profound assets when understood and harnessed. He helps people become what he calls practical dreamers, turning difference into direction. This episode is about identity, reframing, and the values that allow us to transform perceived weakness into strength. Hi, everyone. I'm here with Claud Williams, and I'm really excited because I've been reading about you and your background, and I even went into the Medium and read a lot of your posts from early on. And I don't know, it's been a fun small journey for me, just learning a little bit about your background. And I'm most excited to have you here just as a little intro, just because I think we have a lot of synergy. I really believe once listeners, which I hope I'll have out there that can listen to this, will see that what I've tried to build in my basically model that's built on happiness and productivity, or really how do we reach meaning and purpose through value prioritization, figure out what those blocks are. Typically, they're unconscious things that are happening in our lives. And how do we get there? Because that is true success and that is true happiness in life. So if you could just tell everybody just a little bit about you before you created Dream Nation, what we're going to talk about a little bit later, but just who Claud Williams is and a little bit about maybe your early background and some of the struggles that you faced early on.
Firstly, I'm a twin. I got a twin sister.
Oh, you do? I didn't see that. Wow.
Yes, we tend to keep it relatively separate so we can have our own lives and careers.
Right.
Born in the early 90s, or as the kids now say, the late 1900s. But one of the things that we discovered pretty early on is that I am pretty dyslexic, which has a whole load of consequences, particularly within the current education system. Yeah. I was lucky in the sense that my family very much so instilled a lot of confidence in me. So I was able to separate out my intelligence versus, I guess, the way that intelligence is measured, particularly at a primary school level. Which effectively instilled in me that I'm probably going to have to live a very different life or take a different pathway if I wanted to be successful. So fast forward past discovering that in primary school, going on to secondary school, I later fell in love with basketball. I just never really connected with football the way that a lot of kids here in the UK do, or soccer as I guess the Americans say.
In the American way.
Like discovering basketball in secondary school or high school was game changing for me.
Just a quick question about that. When I was reading about kind of your basketball days and being an athlete in my past, do you think that because I know that you talked about that first kind of season on the team and you barely made the team, and it's funny, it kind of reminds me, of I might have even been Michael Jordan way back when he got cut from one of the first teams he played on, which is
high school team, I think it was, yeah.
It's pretty crazy, right? When you think about it. And then to be the world sensation that he became. Do you think that it was your dyslexia?
I won't say it was conscious in the sense I made the connection at that stage in my life, but I had already very much so accepted that there are things that I may not be good at today, but I can be good at tomorrow. So that was a fundamental belief that I guess I had to accept as quite a young child before I even got to secondary school. Yeah. Otherwise, to be honest, I would have given up on myself, because when you're doing when you're doing spelling tests in school for 3 and 4 letter words and you're walking away with scores of zeros and ones and twos, if you don't believe that you can improve and grow and change with enough effort, then you will give up. And you do see a lot of neurodiverse children or children just who are different in one way or another give up because of what life, society, the world is telling them in that moment, rather than being able to hold on to a vision for what the future can be.
I totally agree with that. And I look at you as like, especially your age. My oldest daughter was born in the 90s as well. So she's, born in 1996. And my youngest lost an eye to cancer. So she lost an eye young. And monocular vision children, they don't know too much about. They know a lot about losing an eye later in life, and your brain has a lot of memory. But when you lose it 2 and under, you have no brain memory. And obviously she wasn't neurodiverse, but her life was very different. And I guess what makes your story interesting to me as a precursor to beginning Dream Nation is that I've always believed that somewhat disability, not even necessarily a disability, but to be one-eyed in certain circumstances, it is driving, and in other cases, it made her better. It really did. I mean, she was like, she wasn't supposed to be able to play any sports because she has no depth perception. She insisted on playing tennis. I mean, you need depth perception for it.
That's a pretty depth perception heavy sport,
And
right?
yes, and she's a great tennis player. She was never supposed to play what you would call in Europe as football. We call in America soccer. Never supposed to play because she can't have brain injuries. Because if you only have one eye and you have a prosthesis and you get a brain injury and you could be blind, it didn't matter. She insisted. And I mean, finally, I relented. But I think I so much believe in that idea of then what you built next, because I believe when you have something that makes you different, it can make you better, and it makes you a leader, and it can, but you have to be aware of that. So if you had to define personal values, do you have a personal definition based upon looking back?
That is, I wouldn't say that I've got a set of values written down. I can almost think about it in different contexts and situations. Although one thing that I do know that I do always value in every situation is good leadership. One, it drives me crazy when I see poor leadership in almost any context. So that is one. And I think another is probably more around empathy for people. So being able to understand somebody else's situation, but not sympathy or kind of looking at it and looking down at it, but actually being able to be on the level of whoever it is that you're speaking to and connecting to. And I also really value, I guess, peace, to be honest with you.
Cool.
And when I say peace, it's like in lots of directions, both in a peace in my inner world. But then I don't like it when things are chaotic around me.
I think empathy is really, and leadership for absolute sure, because to be a good leader, I think it starts a lot with empathy and love and being able to relate to the person that you're leading. So I think that's amazing. So with that in mind, then at 17, what value was it empathy? Was it understanding that pushed you to, you decided all of a sudden to launch? Was it called Dream Nation then, or was it Cosmic something?
It was a different, so I set up a number of businesses. So I guess we kind of stopped on the basketball story, but to speed run that one, started off as being crap at it, got to a finals for my county on a team where I basically rode the bench. We lost in a really painful, devastating way. Really hated the
feeling.
Hated the feeling. I remember looking around feeling helpless. Like I remember my teammates like semi-crying, not talking to each other, like this bad energy. Promised myself never gonna let that happen again. Went and took training seriously, came back as one of the better players in my area, I guess. And we went on to be defeated for 2 years, including winning a national championship. So that's the story, the background story. So I'm not the tallest, which is why I knew I was never going to go pro. About 5'11", 6 foot if you want to be generous. Like being able to do that, particularly at that age, it did stand out a lot, and that's where the name came from. But going back to 17, so played basketball, etc. I knew I'd pretty much reached as far as I was going to go. Was not going to go to the national team. I didn't even want to be professional in basketball. at the time I wanted to be a coach. I had a pretty bad injury at some like 16, 17, due to the wear and tear of basketball, due to trying to dunk consistently as a 5'11" guy. Like
Yeah,
your body's not designed to do that.
it's a lot.
And I remember it was the summer holidays and I was just getting sick of playing PlayStation, being the only thing I could do.
Right.
So I started to just chill out at the basketball court, even though I wasn't able to play. And I noticed that people were consistently arguing about who the best player was. And after a while, I thought, well, since I've got nothing else to do, why not I just start organizing tournaments to actually answer that question? And that led eventually to the start of my first business, which at the time was called Cosmic Sports. So we organized basketball tournaments and training camps, and did that until I went off to university.
Wow. Okay, that's amazing. So that's cool. I mean, so you were entrepreneurial from an early age. So it makes sense to me that leadership comes to mind right away because really early on, and I think sports is the best way to see leadership take place because I mean you have to be a team member and share the ball and know that it takes the whole team. And I think when you play a sport, you learn that very quickly and leadership and like knowing when you need to take charge and where you need to help.
I would say the biggest lesson that I learned from the launching the sports company was people are always telling you what they want. You just have to pay attention and listen. It was the fact that I just took the time to be around who I didn't know my target customers at the time, but just being around them, listen to what they're saying, and there will be answers in terms of how you can find something you can give them what they want and you can get what you want.
Right.
So that was that company. I also had at the time bought a DSLR camera to take pictures at my basketball tournaments and training camps, etc. Because MySpace was picking up then. So I was pretty early to understanding the power of social media for marketing. So I wanted high quality pictures for those websites so that I can get more people interested to come and watch or take part or whatever that might be. And by the time I got to uni, which was quite far away from where I was doing the tournaments, it just became really hard to keep on organizing them.
Right.
But people kept on asking me to come and take pictures for them at different things. So whether it was their clothing line or this event that they were organizing or whatever that might be. And by the end of my first year, I realized, and then somebody asked, how much does it cost to get you to come eventually?
Yeah.
I picked a random number. They said yes. And I realized, this is a far easier business to run and a lot more profitable.
Yeah, because it's you going places, not organizing all these people to come to an event.
Yeah.
A lot of logistics involved with planning a tournament.
Exactly. Yeah. So that eventually led to my second company. At the time I was following a space type theme, like Cosmic Sports. I called this one Starlight Imagery. And that was a photography business. Did that throughout university. That's what I used to support myself rather than going to get a part-time job, etc. So yeah, that covers things like rent, food, and all of those things. And then that slowly evolved from photography into video production, into opening a physical studio space, into then more of like a marketing agency and consultancy. It did pretty well. We won quite a few awards, and like we got to the point where we were offered to take part in like an investment program that my university was running. But I got to the point where I realized I just really wasn't happy.
Yeah.
I realized that I was spending a lot of time working with, at that point when it's now the agency, working with like these large corporate clients, and it's just, yeah, you're getting paid and you're getting awards, but it just was so unfulfilling.
It wasn't meaningful anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I took some time out to reconnect with what mattered to me. And I guess a part of the story that I skipped was when I did start the first company. I didn't even know what entrepreneurship was at the time. But my older sister had given me a book. It was called Losing My Virginity, which is Richard Branson's, I think, his first biography. I think it was his first, if not his second. And that opened my eyes to an entirely new world. Like, dyslexic from the UK, billionaire, like cool entrepreneurial life, etc. And I thought that was amazing. But the thing that really stood out to me wasn't the money and the private island and all of that. that was cool. So there was a war in the Middle East at the time, and like the British government felt powerless to do anything about it for lots of geopolitical reasons.
Right.
However, because at the time he had his own airline, he was able to charter one of his own flights, fly that over to the area, get a bunch of like UK citizens that were being held hostage, drop off some supplies as well to the people on the ground, and then bring it back. And that stood out to me. And another story that stood out to me was because of his relationship with, I think it was the king of one of the regions where the war was taking place. He was able to talk to them directly about the situation, and that did have a calming effect on what happened with the conflict. At the same time, around the same sort of time periods, this was when Hurricane Katrina had hit New Orleans. And I remember watching on TV of how helpless people were, and the fact that it felt like nobody was doing anything to help all these people that were having just their lives absolutely destroyed. And I said to myself, I'd love one day to be in a position where I can have that level of influence in different places, as well as resources, that I will be able to do something about things not being right. And ultimately, entrepreneurship for me is a vehicle to be able to make an impact.
Wow, that's amazing. That's the empathy. That's
Yeah.
what's so important to you, you know. But you have to build, in order to do empathy in that grand type of way, you need to have a platform. You need to build something yourself, which
Exactly.
is really amazing. I know Richard Branson. When I was building my model, there's a lot of values work written about him, values, his own values that are very important to him, and he would often speak to them. Wow, so that's interesting. But that was kind of the impetus right before you thought maybe I'm going to build.
So the reason I brought that up was because I had to remind myself that why I got into business. Like, yes, like making money is good and having a reputation, all that is good, but it is also something about actually making a difference to people's lives. And I realized that through the coaching work I used to do, like as a basketball coach, there's also something that I really just love watching people grow and progress and change.
Agreed. Me too.
And that kind of taken some time out. I took a sabbatical from the business at the time, left it with my business partner to run, just to do a bit of soul searching. And during the soul searching period, I reconnected with those values, like understanding why I started, what it is I want to do. I also took the time to do a little bit of reading about history. So I read about people like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, etc.,
Wow.
and saw how they used their skills, resources, talents, their youth at the time to have such a huge impact on the world as well. And I said that even if I don't ever have that level of impact, I would at least like to use all these things that I've been blessed with to try and make a difference.
Yeah, because it's like a ripple effect.
Exactly that. Exactly that.
That's
So
amazing. But what I mean, honestly, that's a certain level of high intellectualism. You as a young person, and maybe that's some of the best entrepreneurs out there. Is that what they do? Is to have that reflective time. You know what I mean? Not to, to feel as if something isn't working out, and then be able to go back and reflect and choose another path.
So then what happened for me next was through reading the books, I realized that there was an interesting date coming up. This was now 2013, which was going to be and August the 28th, I believe it was, would have been the 50th anniversary of the I Have a Dream speech by Martin Luther King.
Oh, that's amazing.
And at the same time, another book I had read had introduced this idea to me, which you call practical dreaming, or being a practical dreamer.
Yeah.
And then it's like, at some point during that time period of sabbatical, all these things came together of you know how to organize events. You want to do something that's more impactful. You have this big anniversary date coming up later this year. And you know how to run businesses. So that was one of the things, because I'd given a TEDx talk earlier that year as well. And I thought, great experience, but lots of things that could be done better. So I thought, I'm not someone to just complain. I will often just do it better.
Exactly.
So
Wow.
did this. So I wanted to do it on the day of the anniversary. I wanted to have the theme of dreaming. So I called it I Have a Dream. But I wanted the topic to be about practical dreaming. And the concept was, how do I bring all these people around me that were inspiring me in one form or another to come and share what were their story about how they became a practical dreamer, as well as the most important lessons that they learned along the way.
That's amazing. I mean, it's funny too. I had Martin Luther King on my website when I first started,
Mm.
because I just, I feel like anything, any kind of meeting people want to have in life, just listen to his words, of hope, even in the most oppressive situations, of hope. And how was it hard for you to get speakers, or did they come fairly easily?
The
Because
speakers
that's
were
not
easy. No, the speakers were easy, and I think if I guess I'm skipping big parts of the story, but by being a good and popular photographer, it meant that you
that's
get
true.
invited to all of these rooms and meet all these amazing people.
Yeah,
So that was that. I had
that's true.
also built a really big reputation at my university because I also became the president of the Afro Caribbean Society. Um,
Wow.
and I had turned it around from, to be very frank, a complete mess
Yeah.
to becoming one of the best in the country. So that gave me a huge network through one way or another, and as a consequence, I just tapped on the shoulders of a bunch of people that I know. They almost everybody on the stage was a friend in one form or another.
So I mean, if you don't mind sharing, what were some of the speakers, and like, do certain stories stand out from the speakers that you had at that event that kind of help shape even you in the future in a way? Because I think sometimes you hear people and you're like, wow, just like the people reading about Richard Branson and
Yeah,
Martin.
we've done quite a few, but the I'll going back to that very first one before I knew
Yeah.
it was going to take off. One of my good friends at the time, unfortunately, he has now passed away, unfortunately due to a car accident
It's
years back.
terrible.
It's okay. His name was Caleb Meekins. And at the time, he was in the middle of a project called My 40 Days. And I feel like he probably picked it up from Tim Ferriss, whether it was from his podcast or
Yeah.
from his book, of basically doing something to deliberately try to get yourself rejected. So he started a YouTube series of 40 days of like effectively rejection therapy of let's try and do something really crazy, and the intention is to get rejected and see
Right.
what happens. And he did some even he didn't finish the series, I don't think, but and you can still go and find it on YouTube today. Seeing how much the experience changed him of like really confronting these fears and social contracts that we have, but we don't even necessarily think we have. I think the very first day was something pretty small, which was just to lie down in the middle of like a footpath or something like that. And started off tiny. By the end of
Right.
it, he was literally walking the red carpet in some massive award shows, like expecting to be stopped by security or whatever. But no, like because he did it with so much confidence, just next to these massive A-list celebrities, and walked in, had a great night, and just saw the transformation that he went on, as well as just seeing how much can be achieved in life if you don't allow yourself to be held back.
Yeah, if you dare, just if
Yeah.
you dare. So, in this journey, because I could talk to you for the next 12 hours, do you have a young person that you like, a couple people in your experience, because you've met so many in your leadership roles, where you've seen someone that was in a situation where maybe they didn't think they could go on or do something different. Did you see some transformative experiences yourself just in the work that you do?
More than I can count. More than I can count. It is a pretty regular experience. Less so now. So my life is pretty different. I've stepped away from the entrepreneurial side for now. I'll be back,
Yeah.
but as of right now, I'm the director of innovation for a health fund, and I also sit on a couple of boards too. So I'm less connected with young people like I used to be. But yeah, no, I've seen hundreds of transformation stories, so I know it's something that can be done for anybody.
Well, yeah, I spoke with a woman the other day, and she spoke about she was she's in Chicago, and you know doing great work, and at the end of the conversation, she told me that she had had a teen pregnancy and was still with the man. They were 16 when they had their
Mm.
children, or began having their children. They had gotten divorced and got remarried, and I asked her what she thought about young people and other young teens that might be going through something like this, and she said that what she got from her faith growing up wasn't necessarily the traditions of the faith, but it was really that each of us has something meaningful to
Mm.
bring to this planet. And it was just so simple, but so true, because I think that when times are the hardest or you're faced with challenges, you just knowing that you have a place to move forward into. So
Yeah.
when you first started So it started as like kind of a yearly event, this Dream Nation, right? Where you put these people in front of, and you were trying to, I, from what I'm reading about you, to show other neurodiverse or people in general that essentially you can take what's been given to you as somewhat of a challenge or a hardship and turn it into something pretty magical if you're a practical dreamer, right?
Pretty much, it wasn't targeted at neurodiverse people, but it was the lesson that I learned from neurodiversity.
Oh,
Around this,
amazing.
this is like, I guess for me, I'm a big believer that success does leave clues, but it doesn't always look exactly the same for everybody.
No.
But if you can spot the principles and the patterns, then you can apply them to different situations and contexts. So yeah, like the idea of having a vision for your life, but then a vision isn't enough. Do the practical things to make it happen for you.
Yeah.
If you do that, then you can turn any situation around.
Yeah, and also I guess like Steve Jobs always the piece of it from that great famous kind of graduation address that he gave. And he was talking to the young people at Stanford, and I think
Hmm.
he said to them that often in life when things are having these challenges, like he was fired by the board, the company created and whatnot, that we often can't connect the dots until we look backwards.
Yeah.
We don't always know. I mean, it's a kind of a strange question, but it's popping into my head. So you have a twin sister. Did she face similar neurodiverse challenges or not really? Were you the one, you were the twin that
So
had something like this?
it's interesting. So now that I've gotten older and understand a lot more about it, I can see where once again society probably let her down. Neurodiversity is very typically underdiagnosed in women. So
Oh,
it means that because she didn't present in the same way that I
because
did,
they're well behaved, more well behaved usually.
exactly, or lots of different ways. So yeah, she very much so was dyslexic, but
Yeah.
she only was diagnosed at university. So that meant that there was a world of like support that she could have been tapping into throughout all of school that she
And
just
you
simply
being self, thinking about the challenges that she probably, I mean, what you do is you come up with your own personal like skills and habits, the way to get around things so you can get them done. I mean, it's
yeah,
pretty incredible. She must have, I mean, it must be amazing because she was able to get through school and get to university.
exactly.
Wow.
So yeah, so it always, because we didn't think that she had dyslexia, there was always, well, to be fair to my parents, they were very good at not comparing. So there's
Yeah,
not
that's
that. But even though my family doesn't, the world will. So yeah, it was
true.
always interesting to watch that. But then knowing she accomplished what she did without having that, I guess, support around her, just as a testament to, I guess, her as a person.
Yeah, who she is. I mean, really kind of someone to look up to. Was she born first or were you born first?
I'm definitely the older sibling.
Okay. Well, what about, this is kind of a interesting question that I think is always fun to ask people. Is there a habit that you kind of have struggled with a lot of your life in your businesses, in your personal life that you've had to work on and that it's something that you often maybe notice, but you just put it aside, but you're actively do notice that it's an unconscious behavior and you're always trying to make it
Millions,
better?
millions. I'm very aware. I think to be dyslexic or neurodiverse and still, like, to be frank, reach the level of success that I've been able to do, you have to be aware of your strengths and weaknesses. Otherwise, reality will just kick your ass. To be honest with
Yeah,
you,
right.
and I guess going back into the whole practical dreamer concept, there are some weaknesses that for me to address, and I just had these are just fundamental. You need to get on top of them. There were a load of them which I'm like, you know what, this is a battle that I don't need to fight. I can hire somebody to fix this problem for me. Um,
Right.
so
Exactly.
at this stage of my life, I have addressed, I'm going to say, the vast majority of those bad habits that were holding me back. I've hired peer support around me to address the ones that I can outsource. Um,
Right.
we'll continue to work on the rest.
If you had to think of a time, something you'd want to share that was probably the biggest, a tough transition where you really had to make some tough values choices, and it could be personal or, in your work life, something that would like to share. Is there something that, that gives people, in addition to obviously what you've done with your dyslexia and your ability to kind of persevere, something you could share with the people out there?
I would say where I had to make a values based decision not too long ago. Actually, I say that it was quite a couple of years ago now. This was closer to COVID. was deciding the type of person that I wanted to be. When I mean by that is I had just come to the end of what I was a pretty toxic relationship. And the lady that I was dating at the time, like, had, I'm gonna say, probably done a lot of projection of a lot of ideas, or just struggling with her own stuff, which is just
Right.
happens. We all go through our moments. But I think I at the time had to stop and reflect around. I have a choice right now. I can continue to be the same type of person that I have always been, which is like valuing stuff like empathy, or like continuing to like be patient, be kind, be loving, be gentle, those type of things. And around the same sort of time, this is when things like the whole manosphere situation was like really starting to pick up dust, etc., or steam rather, and they were presenting all these other ideas of what it is to be a man, or what masculinity could be.
Yeah.
And they were very different, but they were claiming that this is what will be successful. I didn't want to be in another situation where I'm finding myself having to break off from at the time the love of my life. So I was like, maybe these are the right answers. So
Right.
I remember, and then also I then had to contest with the fact of, well, I've done it this way in terms of being the whole empathetic, kind type person, and this is the result that I got. So yeah, maybe I should do something else. And I remember like having real battles, and also dealing with the pain of breaking up and mourning.
Yeah.
And all that. And
So it's really difficult.
so then you got all those emotions thrown in. So for me, I then had to decide, who do you want to be moving forward? And I chose to stick on the pathway I was, in the sense of, I realized that just because it didn't work in this situation, it doesn't mean you shouldn't be changing your values based on the outcomes of things, or based on other people's decision-making thought processes or things of that nature. You
Yeah.
should decide your values based on what you believe to be true. And then once you know your values, then you work to become the person where you can live those values out consistently.
It's super interesting because it's almost like the inverse, because you're talking about like the whole toxic masculinity thing was coming along, and maybe you thought, I'm just not tough enough and I'm not handling this the right way. It's almost like the inverse of sometimes what you see. It's like my husband talks a lot about sometimes, like, once not just men, but once individuals, oftentimes it's very successful, Wall Street types and actors and, people who have money, opportunity, and time. They have to decide, do I want to be a good person or do I not? And here it's like it sounds to me, you were trying to do everything in your power to lead with those empathy, love, kindness, and you weren't getting what you needed back. And so you were almost thinking to choose almost more of a, I don't want to label it, but a little bit darker side to yourself in order to get through.
Literally. And it wasn't just in like love and romance. I realized this was a choice that would be consistent, because you can look and see who are the people who are doing financially well in this world, and they are largely sociopathic in their behavior.
Oh yeah, they are. I mean, you do have to make a conscious choice in this life.
Yeah. I will say, just to balance it out, I don't want people to walk away with the wrong message.
No. I don't think. Yeah, please re-say it.
I did change as a consequence, but I think I matured with wisdom. So what I probably learned, and what I was probably getting it wrong before, was you can still be a good leader, empathetic, kind, loving, patient, all of those things, but you can also have boundaries. And I think that's where I was getting it wrong before.
Yeah, and I get that. I mean, that makes sense to me. Like I agree. Like I spent many of friendships throughout my life victimizing myself, I would say. And I had to look at myself and say, why am I letting this happen? Like, what's wrong in me that I have to be a victim? You do have to have boundaries. And you do have to put those someone told me, literally, it was the guy like putting the security system in my home. I unburdened myself with something bad that had happened in my life. And I remember the last day he left, he said, I'm not sure what you believe in and who you trust in, and if you have any faith, but if you got to put up your windows and close your doors a little bit. You still have to let it in, because life is about suffering, and is how we learn. And I guess I was thinking maybe equating success with just maybe material and money and those things. But yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I mean, I think any truly successful human being out there that's built something from nothing themselves, it's work. You're tired. You're working.
Yeah.
So I guess I've had you for a long time, and I don't know. I really I still have so many questions, but I guess if somebody was, I don't know when your next, so if you're the 90s, so your next big birthday celebration, do you ever
Mhm.
think, I mean, if there's a birthday toast that someone's going to give for you, do you ever, what would you say that you would hope that they would say at a big birthday, or someone that's maybe toasting you at one of your events?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. Um, for context, when my next big birthday will be my 40th. I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say this, and then I'm gonna try to answer your question. I don't know if this is a good thing or not. So once again, not advocating that this is how people
No
should
good
feel,
or bad. This is,
but I think because of partly of how I've been raised, it also means that I very much so have learned to not seek other people's validation. So when you ask me a question, I struggle to find the answer because I've trained myself to not care in that regard. But
right.
I do think it's important that I do engage with what you're saying because, like I said, I'm not confident that's actually a good thing to completely
No,
disregard.
no, I think in
Um,
many contexts it is. I think when you're around your family and your friends and the people you love and trust the most.
I feel like what I'd love people to say is that I made, I made, I was gonna say made the world a better place, but I'd rather they say they made their world a better place.
Oh,
Uh,
that's
and I think it's one thing that I do take a lot of pleasure in is there's a lot of people who I know have played a very meaningful role in the success that they have. And selfishly, like I want that to be a very large number by the time everything is said and done for me. So knowing that not just my closest people, but even people that I might never meet, the work that I've done, decisions that I've made, or things that I've created have materially improved their lives. That would be that would be a successful life in my eyes.
that's amazing. Well, I'm going to end on that, and there's no doubt because you touched mine just reading about you and just having this conversation today. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.